The Southern Alberta Council on Public Affairs acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains, and we pay respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. We offer respect to the Métis and all who have lived on this land and made Lethbridge their home.
So our speakers today is Jason Schreiner, amply supported by Kathy Lewis. So without any further ado, I invite you to give Jason a warm welcome.
Oh, hi, folks. Thanks for having me. I think 29 years ago in the spring was the very first time I came to a SACPA. And as a speaker, I had no clue what I was getting myself into. I was newly elected as the student union president, about 23 years old. I had all the answers back then. I don't know where they went. They're not there anymore. I think there's a lot more questions. So that's what we're going to explore today. So Imagine Lethbridge is a grassroots organization of concerned citizens here in Lethbridge that have rallied around a shift in perspective to navigate the times that we find ourselves in, particularly around the economic and social models that are prevailing and perhaps not working out too well for all of us. So I'll give you a little bit of history here, but I'm just going to make sure I've got this right. Okay. Oh, there we are. Yeah. So when we contemplate where we are today as a community here in Lethbridge, and as we scan out to our province, our nation, even globally, and we ask the question, are we healthy? In the grand scheme of things, are we happy? Have we achieved joy, contentedness? Is everyone experiencing equality? Are we well? Are we joyful? Is our planet okay? I think all of us would have a perspective on that. And most of it, the prevailing sense would be, I think we're not doing all right. I think we've got some areas of concern. And I think each one of us here, your neighbors matter to you. Your environment matters to you. Each one of us wants to make a difference. Each one of us wants to be able to, answer the question, am I contributing to the health of my neighbors in the grand scheme of things? And not just about the body, but in their total wellness. Am I contributing, to a healthy environment? What does success look like? What does a successful city look like? What does a successful family look like? What does a successful country look like? Or a successful economy? I think the predominant measures are wealth, money, and the traditional sense of the traditional measures are about the economy in a specific definition of economy around growth, the GDP, profits, money, but are those the right measures? Are we asking the right questions about what it is to be well, what it is to be prosperous, what it is to succeed, what it is to care, what it is to honor our environment? Do we have the right mindset or the right measures? Is it our job to accept what is and fight that, inequality is just a part of life, and we got to fight it. A degrading environment is just part of our evolutionary cycle, and it's our job to fight. Or is it our job to perhaps change our minds, to challenge the perspective? I think it's that. So the history of Imagine Lethbridge starts in a room like this. A few of your fellow members, Kathy Lewis, Diane Randall, Jerry Hecker, who have been contributing to this community for decades, like many of us, were passionate about the issues facing our community, and deeply, deeply concerned, wanted to make a difference, wanted to leverage the experiences and skills and connections that they built through decades of hard work, and leave this city and better than they found it, allow their children and grandchildren to inherit a community and an earth that was healthy and well. So began to look at models and ideas as to how to make a difference, and explored, it was about 2019 they gathered and explored ideas such as blue zones and other positive initiatives, positive global initiatives, and came upon a global phenomenon known as Doughnut Economics, which is a popular expression of an economic model called regenerative economics. So our prevailing economic system is all about growth, and gross domestic product is the ultimate measure of success. So this model challenges that very idea. Now, I recall when did I get that? When I first became politically and socially active as a young man, the forces of neoliberal ideas of the economy were in full swing. And the narrative, that narrative shift between citizenry and consumers was in full swing. And now, fast forward 2025, we've seen the global neoliberal agenda around growth play out for nearly 4.5 decades. And has it delivered? Are we better off? Is our planet better off? And are we satisfied that we're describing ourselves well enough? So I've got this question here. Do we live in an economy, or do we live in a community? I think the prevailing narrative wants us to believe that we're part of an economy, and that the economy exists outside of us. It's the invisible hand guiding all of us. There's mechanistic levers out there that we have to grasp for, and that we align ourselves with this idea of an economy outside of our own behavior and outside of what happens in our communities. It's something we align ourselves to. It's something that we serve rather than it's serving us. I'm inclined to believe that we live in a community. And that's a word that's getting a lot of a lot of play these days. It can mean many different things. It can mean a geographic location. It could mean a community of interest, such as SACPA. You all gather around the interest of this community. But the idea of community is an embedded context, and it starts with you as an individual in your household. It could mean those that live on your street. You're interconnected with them. Those that live in your neighborhood. That's your community as well. Lethbridge is your community. It's embedded in that. Alberta is your community. Canada is. And ultimately, Earth is your community, which means your actions, your decisions matter. You are an agent in your community. You are a citizen. You're not an ambiguous and anonymous unit or consumer in an economy. You're part of a community, and communities matter. It's where everything happens. So what's different, and what is the perspective that offers us a chance, a hope, offers us or invites us to rethink, to reimagine? So Doughnut Economics is based upon a model. the donut. So if we look here, when asking, what is it that drives us? What holds us together? What keeps us going? Oops, there we are. What are the measures that we ought to be using to ensure that we are succeeding, that we're healthy, that we're well, that our communities are healthy, that we're thriving and we're interconnected properly? Imagine the traditional American donut with your doughy goodness with a hole in the middle. Now imagine a structure of our community and our environment. On the inside of the circle is the social foundation of community. These are 11 measures that represent the absolute basic minimum for a human to be well. If you want to measure if a person is happy, well, if they are living as we think we ought to be living, there are some basic measures. So in the social foundation, what is basic, what is absolutely required for someone to be thriving, for someone to be well, for someone to be contributing? Well, access to water, food, physical health, education, income and work, peace and justice, a political voice, social equality, gender equality, housing, networks, and energy. So this is the minimum standard. Everyone has to be above that in order to be well, in order to be considered healthy, in order to be considered thriving. But we live on this planet. We live in a biosphere. And the Earth has its own limitations too. There are 9 measures that life scientists and the United Nations have agreed are the foundational, fundamental measures of the health of our planet. Climate change, ocean acidification, chemical pollution, nitrogen and phosphorus loading, fresh water withdrawals, land conversion, biodiversity loss, air pollution, ozone layer depletion. So what are these? That's the limit of how, that's the limit where life can exist. If we're breaching any of these particular measures, it means we're compromising our capacity to exist, compromising our capacities to be well, and compromising our capacities to thrive. So the proposal in Doughnut Economics, or regenerative economics, is that rather than growth, rather than gross domestic product as a measure of our wellness, we use these measures to assess the health of our households, our communities, our cities, our provinces. And it's a package deal. It's not a pick and choose. That we got to get this all right. So if anyone is below the minimum threshold of the social foundation for a good, healthy, happy life, then we're in trouble. We all have to be above these minimum thresholds. And if any of them are compromised, then we're all compromised. Likewise, in the ecological, in the biospheric limits, if we're crossing those limits, any one of them, then we're compromising the whole. This is a system. We live in a system. So I'll give you practical examples. We are beginning to measure for these things. Many independent organizations, many caring organizations, both in a social and an environmental context, care. And we're seeing a lot of work being done, a lot of attention being drawn to various aspects of our environment, various aspects of our social and community lives. We've got to bring that together and recognize where we're falling short. So this model, so for For example, we could take the issue of education. Does everyone have access to education here in Lethbridge equally? Does every community around the world? Do we have areas, countries, regions where everyone gets access to education? Is it just the boys? Is it just the wealthy? So that's a measure, right? You can take that measure and say, okay, we can do better. But we take them in a comprehensive whole. So this is the question, one of the basic questions that this model is asking, that Imagine Lethbridge is asking. Are we asking the right questions about our wellness? We would like to ask them in this context and create a picture of our community based on these measures and connect the dots. Do we have the right mindset? That's another question that we need to ask ourselves. If the narrative is the economy is all that matters, well, that kind of makes all of us economists then. And what is it like to be an economist in the 21st century? If you're going along with the predominant narrative, you have no agency. Your choices don't matter. The machine is moving along, and you play your part by consuming and ignoring everything that happens around you. But that's not a measure of wellness. That's not what we really want. So what are some ways that we can shift our perspective to truly engage and act on behalf of our own wellness and the wellness of our neighbors and in consideration of our environment? Well, it does require a bit of a shift. I mean, right now, so one of the asks is that we change the goal. So instead of GDP is the ultimate measure of success, which is the traditional model right now, where we can rank nations based upon their output, why don't we consider new measures, the 21 measures in the donut? And why don't we see the big picture? Right now, there's a predominant belief that markets are self-contained, that they're circular, inputs and outputs. But what if we recognize that this is not self-contained? Every one of our decisions are interconnected, from the household to the community, to the province and upwards. We've got Earth, and embedded in that is society. Embedded in that is the idea of the economy. And the economy, is it an abstraction? No, it's actually made of markets or commerce, households, the state, the commons. How about we nurture human nature? Right now, the predominant model, who are you? You are the rational economic being, divorced from your emotions, divorced from the context of your neighbor. Your economic decisions, your financial decisions, they don't have to make sense in the context of morality or goodness. We separate out and compartmentalize business decisions, corporate decisions, from personal decisions. But really, we're social beings. We're social, we're interdependent, we're approximating. We're fluid in our values. And we're dependent on a living world. We don't exist as an abstract. Now, we're also asking, in terms of a shift in mindset, to get savvy with systems, to recognize that we live in interconnected systems. So right now, the predominant model is that the economy is going to reach some mechanical equilibrium between supply and demand. And that's a natural force in the universe. And that we align ourselves with this natural force. Instead, why don't we recognize that we live in a rather dynamic, complex, interconnected system? It's time to kind of stop searching for those elusive controllers and levers and recognize we have an evolving and complex system. And right now, again, why don't we design to distribute? We have this idea now that growth, that inequality has to get worse before it'll get better, that growth will naturally smooth things out, that it's a natural part of the growth of a nation state. There has to be radical inequality while you build things, and then it'll all sort itself out. Perhaps we can be brave enough to recognize that's actually a design flaw. We're choosing that. We can choose a different model. We can contemplate redistributing wealth and our ideas of how we own land and enterprise, tech, money. Why don't we plan and create to regenerate? In our environmental context, again, the prevailing belief is that environmental degradation is a necessary part of growth, a necessary part of the evolution of a society. We've got to wreck it all and to build and acquire before we all settle down and it will become clean again. So we've got to make it dirty before we can make it clean. Again, that's a design flaw. That's a choice we're making in how we engage, how we extract, how we use the resources. And then another ask about a way to think like a 21st century economist is to become agnostic about growth. Do we have to grow? Is that the ultimate measure of success? Perhaps we can be content with enough. Perhaps we could be content with sustainable, with healthy, with well. You know, who has the power and agency in our current systems? Like, how do you exercise your agency? You know, who are the actors? You know, it's ultimately us. You know, right now we have this view that, you know, we've got the market. It exists independent of us. It's efficient. Give it free rein. Businesses are innovative. Let them lead. You know, let them make the decisions about where we're going. Finance is infallible. We can trust it. Trade, it's always win-win. Of course, open your borders. The state, it's incompetent. You know, don't let it meddle in our communities and with our money. The households, domestic. You know, leave it to women and children. The commons, they're tragic. Sell them off. Sell off all the common property. Privatize it all. I mean, that's, you know, it's for another actor. Society, non-existent. Ignore it, right? That's what Thatcher told us. Society doesn't exist. Her and Reagan, well, they believed it. And that's how we're living now. Earth, absolutely inexhaustible. The resources, infinite. Available to take as much as you want to serve a very finite few. Power, it's irrelevant. We're not going to talk about it. I mean, this is the traditional way. These are the traditional actors. So that's not on us. Like, none of us act that way, right? So who's acting this way? And on whose behalf? So how do we become our own actors? How do we reclaim our agency and think differently about how we're engaging with each other in order to achieve these measures of social and biosphere success? Well, we've got to flip the priorities and flip the order of importance in this. I mean, the most important actor here in our community together, it's the earth. It's life-giving. We've got to respect its boundaries. Society is foundational. We've got to nurture our connections. We exist because of our connections and relationships. The economy is diverse. We have 5 minutes? Perfect. So we have to support all of its systems. The household, its core. We've got to value its contributions. You know, the market's powerful. We've got to embed it wisely. The commons are creative, so unleash their potential. The state, it's essential, but make it accountable. You know, finance is in service, so make it serve. You know, business is innovative, but give it a purpose. Trade, it's double-edged. We've got to make it fair. And power is pervasive, so we've got to check its abuse. So Imagine Lethbridge, we have a mission. And that mission is to make Lethbridge the healthiest city in Canada in which to live, thrive, and age well. How are we going to do that? Well, we're centered around these principles, and one of our goals is to incorporate the Doughnut model into the municipal development plan so that health and well-being of people and the planet are at the center of every decision we make as a community. We also want to build connections among the silos that exist between people, organizations, and businesses so that we're all pulling in the same direction. We've got a tremendous amount of social actors and environmental actors doing incredible work. Our goal is to pool that together to create a community profile where we recognize who's doing what, and where we have more work to do, where we're succeeding, and to collect that picture in order to help each other succeed. What have we done so far? About 2 years ago, this core group, Diane and Kathy and Jerry, started public forums where they invited those in our community, decision makers, to be exposed to this idea. Forums with the mayor, with profs, with community leaders. And they had a number of them, and we got some traction, and the recommendation was to create a steering committee and to create this community profile. So the steering committee of Imagine Lethbridge had their inaugural meeting November 14th. We're working on that city portrait in collaboration with the city and with other actors that are measuring those important ecological and social measures. And a practical example, we're collaborating with the Upper Victoria Park Neighborhood Association and the Area Redevelopment Plan Committee to incorporate Doughnut Economics into the neighborhood plan. So for example, how we choose to zone a parcel of land has an impact on how we are connected, and how affordability, how transit, how water, how it all comes together. We have our AGM and annual conference coming up on May 22nd. Community Business Leaders Forum, again, we're inviting the business leaders of our community to come together and contemplate this shift in perspective. And our community arts leaders are being gathered on June 4th. We have a Facebook page, we're building a website, and we have a monthly newsletter that you can tie into. If you're curious about the idea of Doughnut Economics, there is a beautiful website. It's very robust with a lot of videos. There is a book published on it. You can scan YouTube for lots of different resources. We can talk about it together. You could tie into our website and connect with us. On a personal level, again, your decisions matter. When you're making decisions about how you consume, about how you live with your neighbor, it makes an impact. So small changes can make a big difference. Ideally, we're going to build the world we want together, and one that puts people and the planet at the center of everything. Thank you.
LSCO is kindly providing this space for free of charge to us, and we very much appreciate, and they do too, if you patronize the excellent lunch counter that kind of makes the world go around. Just what Jason talked about. This is how the circular donut economy works. Thank you to U of L for supporting SACPA both financially and with resources. Thank you very much to Ryan from Rogers TV, not Shaw. And thank you very much to Tangle Media, who has designed SACPA's website from day one, and they've upgraded it, and they even pay our annual fee. So very much appreciated that Tangle Media is supporting SACPA. Lethbridge Herald usually come and report on our sessions. I don't know whether they're here today or not, and there's other media that sometimes supports what we do. So without further ado, I think we can start the question period. Jason, do you need the PowerPoint any longer? Otherwise, we'll just pull the plug.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Hi, Jason. My name is Henning Mundel, and I have sort of two questions. One is, I'm going to be semi-facetious. You talked a lot about the different attributes, you use different terms, outer circle, inner circle of the donut. You sort of seem to talk in circles, but one word I didn't hear was empathy. And I wonder whether that's deliberate. That's my question one. And number two is, I know this concept is relatively new, but since 2017, cities like Amsterdam and Portland and Brussels have started. Do you have any update on their progress?
Yeah, there's the Doughnut Economic Action Lab. That's something you can search on Google, and the principal website that collates all of the cities that are involved. There's over 15,000 cities globally that have adopted these principles and have become a member of this network. In Canada, Nanaimo is formally a part of this. Toronto is beginning, and of course, us here in Lethbridge. So yes, that there are many updates. It's a very robust website, and all of the different communities globally have a presence on that website. So you can click through and you can see, and I think there was just a recent update on Amsterdam, so work on YouTube. I was looking through last night on the YouTube resources. Yes, in terms of empathy, I think that's a value that that each one of us would have and be on a spectrum. In terms of a measure, these are some defined measures. You got to pick something to roll with, but at its heart, there's an abundance of values that play out in each one of our lives as we work towards building a healthier community and healthier planet.
Hello, I am Katie Aurora. I am the NDP candidate in the foothills to the west of Lethbridge. And your presentation, I think it really resonates with me because right now, here in Canada, we are one of the wealthiest countries in all of human history. Our productivity has never been higher, even with all of the problems currently going on with Trump and that entire mess to our south. Our stock market, our GDP are still at near record highs, and yet at the same time, rates of burnout, depression, anxiety, feeling hopeless about the world, well, those are also at all-time highs. And it's become very clear to me, and it sounds like increasingly to other people, like yourself, that what we are doing just is not working, right? It's making us miserable. It just isn't working. So in light of the fact that I am running for federal office, I am curious, are there any actions that you would like to see the federal government take to push us as a country towards adopting this Doughnut economic model?
Thanks, Katie. Principally, it is shifting the narrative away. Even the primary candidates speak almost entirely in terms of economy, and it's in that traditional narrative of measured output of productivity, that GDP. That is a measure. It's a measure of something, but is it a measure of our wellness? Not necessarily. So we need to change that narrative, Katie, to something more holistic, something more complex. We need to speak about ourselves as citizens, as communities. as connected and recognize that our interconnectedness is essential to our wellness, and our relationship with the planet is essential to our wellness. And so it really is planting those seeds about adopting different measures, measures of happiness and joy, measures such as those. This is not a call to, this is not an anti-commerce. This is not a, this is ideally an apolitical perspective that could be adopted regardless of your stripe, your political stripe. They're measures, and I think they're valid measures that would produce different kinds of results. We kind of, we are what we measure. We do what we measure in business. What you want to measure, that's what you're going to do. So if we're only measuring one thing, that's what we're going to do. But it leaves out the vast majority of who we are. So that's the point of crisis there. So if we can begin shifting that narrative, I think that's going to be critical. So, thank you very much.
My name is Klaus Jericho. Jason, thank you very much for your holistic approach to a better community, which is really the objective of each and every one of us. But I asked myself, do we have the right process? I mean, I really feel sorry for the city councillors. They listen to what people want, not necessarily what they need, but what they want. And then the poor city councillors have to make the decisions. Well, are we going to go this way or that way? And they're not geniuses. They're just ordinary people that have to make these decisions. And I really feel sorry for them. And I don't know if we have the right process to create a better donut. It is so complicated and complex. As somebody said, it's not rocket science. It's far more complicated than that.
Yeah, thank you, Klaus. It's a good observation. Again, it is about the narrative and the perspective and the measures. If it is about balancing numbers on a balance sheet, then we're likely not going to get the output. If it is a tax and spend, we're likely not going to get the successful measures. Is it an effective process? It is the one we have. But again, in that process, we can determine what the measures are. And recognize that, their decisions matter. I think a lot of us have lost faith in the capacity for political decision makers to make a difference, but they can and they do. But that's also predicated on each one of us making appropriate decisions and thinking about your immediate next door neighbor. Do you know them? Do you help them? Do you make decisions that impact them positively or negatively? It can be as simple as that. And remembering that very human element that you eloquently reminded us of. These decision makers are human beings, right? But so are we, and we have a role to play in this, right? So again, we got to shift that narrative, shift the measures.
Hi, Barb Phillips. I was really taken away with this because I have not heard of Imagine Lethbridge, or I don't think I have, but it sounds like it's relatively new, and I'm on board. I think we got to fix our donut. Anyway, it was not lost on me, though, that in September 2024, the very first SACPAW here was a presentation about a little community called Henderson Lake Park Run, which its mission statement is a happier, healthier planet. And really, you can do that, start the process with 2 laps around Henderson Lake every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. That aside, that's only one step to fixing the donut. I think we need to get buy-in, as you say, from the community and from our elected officials, working our way out from the core. And I guess time will tell on that, because you're just in the processes now, I believe, if I took that correctly, of getting buy-in from from our city council and from various community groups and businesses. So I think it's onwards and upwards because, yeah, there's only one Earth, and we're managing to wreck it pretty well. So I'm also midstream, being it's in a federal election, you might want to comment that the front runner, Mark Carney, wrote a book entitled Value with an S in brackets, value or values, because there's two connotations there, isn't there? Anyway, your take on it.
Thanks so much, Barbara, and thanks for your almost eternal faithfulness to this group and to our community. I'm so grateful for you. Again, the economy is inherently social. That's one of the core messages here. It's not abstract. It's not out there. It's entirely social. We make these choices. We're designing it. We can design it better. If we remember that it's about our communities, and we remember that it's constrained by the resources of our planet, that we have to, if we do it right, we've got very finite resources that could potentially support a near infinite variety of life for tens of thousands of years, if not longer, if we do it right. So again, we got to flip that fundamental narrative of the resources are infinite and they serve a finite few. That we got to flip that on its head. I'm glad that you pointed out the park run. It can be as simple as that recognizing our decisions are largely based on our social needs and the physical environment that we live in. It can be as simple as that, and remembering every one of our future decisions have an impact on those two things. And they're never independent. And that's one of the myths of the predominant model, is that economic decisions happen independent, that they are some universal law that we have to abide by. They don't happen independent. We make those decisions.
Hi, everyone. Amber Murray. I'll be getting tired of my voice. My question is, because I have been dragged into this GDP argument much against my will, and I've had a lot of conversations with economists and economical journalists. It's very boring, but I'd like to say, and I might need to do a deep dive on this, I'm wondering, is there a mathematical model for the donut so that we can compare GDP growth to donut growth or donut sustainability?
Yeah, if you dig into Kate Rayworth's book, there is some modeling. If you do a lit review now on your basic, Google Scholar, or if you have access to academic journals, you're seeing the conversation play out. Again, this is about establishing new measures. Now, measures of success of these measures of, for example, ocean acidification, where we're at, these models exist independent of an economic ideology. And the social measures too, they exist independent of an economic ideology or a political philosophy. So it's actually asking us to do more, to see that the economy is actually the interconnected whole of these things, not just one thing. So it's asking us, in fact, to be agnostic about growth. If growth happens, that's great. But I mean, you look at the lifespan, nothing grows forever in nature. We don't grow forever. We grow up into a certain point, then we're mature. Then we live. We are. Our economic models can be that. I mean, one thing that you never see in an economic textbook is the GDP growth chart extended to its ultimate conclusion, right? That's a vertical line. It doesn't exist in nature, right? So the challenge is, like, do we want to play along any longer with a model that doesn't make any sense. Now, a traditional economist would want to validate their existence. So, and part of this is a challenge to their hegemonic control of the conversation. So, yeah, I could imagine any conversation is going to be a little heated and spicy. Good luck.
My name's Chris Bierman. Of course, I was a former mayor. Still have some political interests. But my question, to be really focused about it, is my question is, are you receiving good, solid support at the municipal level? And what are the plans with a municipal election coming up this October to raise this as an issue among potential candidates? I see a big risk in the province where the far right wing are going to be putting forward candidates in municipal elections, which I think their views would be diametrically opposed to what you're proposing. So how do we influence the election? How do we play a part in the election in promoting a more holistic view of our community and what it should be, not just based on saving nickels and dimes, but actually providing quality of life? So do you have support now, and how do we create support after October? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and again, thank you for your nearly eternal commitment to our city. It's awesome. Thank you. We have, through our various forums, invited councillors, mayors, various leaders, thought leaders in our community who have attended, who have not all, but some have attended, and have certainly been exposed to this. We're not really seeking endorsement, nor do we endorse. I mean, the idea is to be apolitical here in many regards. However, it is essential that we begin to talk about this. And we are planting those seeds now. And the ongoing conversation, we've got participants from a wide range of our community, from the college, the university, from the business sector, from the health sector, from the environmental sciences sector. That conversation's growing. And again, as we develop our city portrait based on those 21 measures and get that snapshot of where we are in all of those, where ideally we would see various actors self-identifying as a contributor in a particular measure and wanting to become involved. On a practical level, Chris, we are in great communication with the development desk, with Genesis and the staff there that are contemplating the bylaw renewal program that's well overdue. The number of ARPs, particularly Upper Victoria Park, is the current ARP that's under the microscope. And so, yeah, there is an appetite. Is it formally adopted at this point? No. But we're working on it. We're going to keep this conversation hot and press it. I respect that there would be some fear around the upcoming municipal election, in particular ideologies creeping into the municipal level. How do we ensure that the conversation around the dais of City Hall is comprehensive, holistic? Well, ideally, we choose with our votes. We recognize that our votes matter and that the decisions that those folks around the dais make really, truly do impact your life. Yeah, I intend to throw my hat in the ring. And there are a number of councillors that are quite optimistic about this perspective and are at least part of the conversation. So that's great. Thank you.
My name is Mark Gettle. For 15 years, I was traveling to China and lecturing and part of a research group. And I was always very impressed by the Chinese people, how they were so proud of their country, how they were thinking of what they could do for the country. They were willing to sacrifice, personal sacrifices, because they really believed in their country. I come back to Canada, and what do I see as a me community? What can the government do? What can be done so that I am doing something better? We are not a we community. So how can we change this? And my question is, do you think Trump is helping us become a we community?
That's a great question. I think, again, this is a little off the cuff and anecdotal, but it certainly is, Trump's behavior is certainly evidence that economics is very personal, that it's not abstract, that one person's thoughts, perspectives, and decisions can shape and change the way we live our lives. And it can happen on a dime, right? Yeah. So is it bringing us to a we? Perhaps it is, because it forces us to recognize that this is not an abstraction, that there's real human beings making these decisions, and why can't I decide to do it a little differently? And again, this is asking us, this model, this idea, and this way, this mindset is asking a lot of us that we take personal responsibility for doing that spot check on our thinking around money and allocation of resources on a municipal level. We are quite comfortable being hostile around ideas about spending, and we're comfortable being hostile because it's all about, but only in an abstract way. We wouldn't be overtly hostile to our next door neighbor. We'd actually care, we care for them. We either ignore them or we care for them, but we're rarely overtly hostile. And so that's recognizing, again, that when you hold kind of these abstract hostile ideas, positions, and you don't see how they play out in a real way on the earth and on your neighbor, then you're not acting well. So that's, I think, the simplest thing to move to a we perspective is remember that you don't get that get out of free jail card from those hostile views. You got to recognize that if you're going to hold a rather cantankerous position, it has a real life impact potentially on your neighbor. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bev Mendel-Atherstone. Thank you very much for coming here. And thank you for everyone who has been working hard on this project in Lethbridge. It seems to me, and thank you very much for explaining Kate Rayworth's 2017 Doughnut Economics. It seems that you envision some of that to be part of the Imagine Lethbridge model, and kudos to you. It seems to me we should be looking at happiness and looking carefully at happiness and maybe even deconstructing happiness. The Beatles said, "Money can't buy me love." And the richest people are not the happiest. So if we look at the factors closely that create happiness in the countries of the north, such as Finland, which has been the happiest country for the past 5 years, the factors that seem to contribute to happiness are factors in the country that create egalitarian lifestyles. These are in direct conflict with greed capitalism. So some of the factors are a strong welfare system, high social support, a low stress lifestyle, and strong connection to nature. So if this is what contributes to our sense of well-being and our happiness and sense of purpose in life and all those good things, I think we need to be putting the highlight on this and challenging our greed capitalism model as your donut model does, but really challenging this and saying, we are not a feudal system. We don't need to recreate the feudal system with the feudal lords as corporations. So what do you think about highlighting the issues that we want to have rather than going, and through that, going after the greed capitalism and neoliberal model. Thank you.
Thanks, Bev. A little bit of a hornet's nest. I'm okay. If I get stung, it's okay. Ultimately, is that better? Yeah. Focusing on what's possible, focusing on joy as a measure, it's essential. I think we already know what isn't working, and do we remain reactive to that? Ideally, that's not going to work because these actors are taking what they want, and we have to determine if it's theirs to take. So when we have a measure strictly based upon productivity and manufactured output, we're not going to have equality. We're not going to have this just, kind, and happy society that we really truly want. So that's, I think, the first step is taking the spotlight off of that and recognizing things like happiness indexes. This is not a new concept. It's a great concept. It's a matter of having the courage to adopt it and the courage to recognize that's going to point us in the right direction. So I think our crisis of joy is our truest crisis right now. And I think if we solve for that and recognize our interconnectedness and our interdependency on our Earth and each other as the primary vehicle for happiness, we might turn this thing around. But we've got to focus on it. We've got to talk about it.
Well, this will be the last question of the day. And you can turn the answer into a take-home message for us as well. So we live in an increasingly individual society. So my question relates to, it basically comes down to individual choices and how we improve our community and getting by, because if you don't take care of your neighbor, then what are we doing here? We can't legislate happiness. You can't legislate being kind to people. It's a fundamental change in people's mind where it's me, me, me. So how do we do that? That's the real question, I think. And you can turn that into a take-home message as well, if you like.
Thanks, Knut. It can be as simple as getting to know your neighbor. What are the people that literally live around you? Do you know their first names? Do you know the names of their pets, their children? It can be that simple to build that empathy and build that sense of we. Do you have the capacity to shovel their walk? Or do you have the wherewithal to say thanks when it happens for you? It can be that simple, and recognizing the decisions you make on a daily basis have an impact on your actual neighbor. It can be that simple, and that's the first step. And a practical way to apply this to your life, these are real measures. Pick one. Pick a couple to work on with your immediate neighbors, right? Water, are you watering your lawn every single day, right? While your neighbor conserves. That's a practical example of this, that your decision to overwater has an impact on your absolute next door neighbor. It can be that simple, and it has to be that simple. The moment we start scaling up to these abstractions, we stop taking it personal, we stop taking responsibility for it. I know that's the hardest thing we can possibly do is just the very rock bottom basics sometimes of getting over little beefs with the people that live next door to you. That's real. We can do it. And it starts there. It starts with our immediate neighbors and our neighborhood. And then you scale up when you're getting that right. Yeah, and then look for the opportunities to apply these empathetic, these compassionate measures on a larger scale. Thanks, guys.